we're looking at 5 simple budgeting techniques you can adopt to prepare for your property purchase. And I'm in conversation with somebody who needs no introduction to the Private Property Podcast team, certainly viewers at home, and that is Echo Quagrain, who is the co-founder and CEO at B Grand Holdings. Echo, good evening, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good evening, Zama. Thank you for having me, and thank you to your viewers as well.
Echo, it's always so great talking to you because you are the man who understands finances. I mean, I always say that property is finance, and when you have a fundamental understanding that it's finance, you need to see where the money comes from, see where the money is going to. So you need to have a very clear sight of the money. Let's perhaps go through, the first, perhaps if you were to share with us what you would consider the most important budgeting technique we need to actually be mindful of when we're looking to buy a property.
To me, I think for starters, to make it simple for the viewers, we should, I think, start with what budgeting is. So to me, according to the dictionary, budgeting is an estimate of income and expenditure for a set period of time, right? But according to me, this is my definition of budgeting. Budgeting, according to me, is a strategy I use to make my money know me, like me, trust me enough to make me more money. And that's what I would like people to adapt, because then take out all the jargons and then just make it simple. So I use simple 5 basic techniques of budgeting. And this is what I did to escape the rat race. This is what I did to quit my job as a banker and now being a serial investor. One is the necessity bucket. So I use 5 different types of buckets and why do I do that? Budgeting is not one size fits all, and you don't have to have one size approach. You need to have, mine techniques might be different, but you need to have purpose, the purpose why you're budgeting. To me, I budget on 5 purpose, which is necessity, legacy builder, which is the financial freedom bucket, education, entertainment, charity. How do I do that? So assuming that you've got 100 Rand and that's the income that you've received for the month, what I do is that I allocate 55% to my necessity bucket. Necessity bucket includes my school fees for my children, mortgage bonds, so your electricity bill, your phone bill, whatever that you need in your day-to-day affairs. That is what the necessity bucket is. Then I move on to my legacy, which is the financial freedom bucket, which is money it's not for me, money I basically save away from my children. And normally that's the money I use to invest in properties, and I call it the legacy builder. Then you move on to your education budget. You cannot be financially free, you cannot manage your money properly if you don't educate yourself. And I'm not talking the formal education. It could be formal education. Maybe you want to finish up your MBA, you've got some purpose, you want to learn something, anything that you want to learn, that's form part of education. But normally what I do is I get to books, go to seminars, go to classes. If I want to set up businesses, I need to go check similar businesses, the competitors, what they're doing out there, go to seminars, educate myself to know what kind of systems that I will use in terms of scalability, how to leapfrog and not get caught in a rat race. So that's what education is for. And my favorite, which is entertainment, live in a system where it says work hard, play hard. So the entertainment bucket is then I allocate 10% to my entertainment bucket. And that's basically if I want to travel, if I want to go overseas, if I have let's say a car that you want to buy, anything that's playful, that's what I put that money aside for. Then we move on to charity. Charity is very dear to my heart. I believe in that we share. I believe in the power of leverage. The power of leverage basically meaning doing more with less time. And when you make that, you also need to share. And when you share, like what we're doing now on this platform, that is sharing. And that's charity. That's spending your time to educate South Africa and educate people that there is ample possibility for you to do whatever you want to do and whatever you set your mind on. normally what I do is that under the charity bucket, I split it into two, which is 5% goes to church and 5% goes to normal people, like maybe any charity program out there, or just basically buying food, giving it to a street kid. That is in a nutshell how my budget looks like.
I think I quite like the way that you sort of differentiate the way that you go about budgeting. How do you then sort of tie that into your property decisions?
I spoke about leverage, right? So that money I put aside, which legacy border bucket, is normally when you're buying from the bank. There's a term called you need to put a skin in the game. We need to know that you are serious about what you're doing. And if you believe in what you do, then you need to contribute to what you do. And in the business terms, we call it equity. How much equity do you have to put in the game? And that's what legacy bucket is for. So normally on a business level, the bank will say, if you want to buy, again, 100,000 worth of property, you need to at least put 20% in, because now you're heavily exposed to property and they want to see that you're contributing more. So then I will put that 20,000 that I've saved with my legacy bucket to leverage off the bank. And it's very crucial. If you want to be a serious investor or a tycoon investor, property investor, you need to use a lot of debt, and that's good debt to grow your books. And this legacy bucket is really crucial, because like they say, cash is king. You need to be able to save up money so that people can trust you enough. Remember, budgeting is simple. Make my money like me, trust me enough to make me more money. And the bank will trust you enough if you know how to manage your money properly. So if you take credit, for example, you need to be able to pay that back. So that's all techniques of managing money. And that's how I tie my budgeting into my property business.
I want us to then look at when we're dealing with people who already have their primary residence, who've already, bonded your primary residence, and let's say whatever number of years that you are in that bond, but you're now looking at adding an investment property. How should we be looking at how we go about budgeting for that investment property?
For you to start going about getting your first investment property, what you need to look at is your cash flow, and how do you go about? And I always say it's simple terms. If the bank is willing to give you 2 rand and they ask you to pay them back 3 rand, you need to find that person that's going to give you 4 rand so that you'll be able to save a rand. And why are you using, and we go back to that 80-20 principle. So why are you saving that rand? And that's precisely this. So the most important number you have to look for, and that's something I've explained, extensively in my video, which is how to calculate your ROI, why the ROI is the most important number or equation in business. And it's not only property, it's also business. You need to understand what an ROI is and how to go about calculating your ROI. First, you need to do your research. You need to understand what you're doing and then tie it back into the budgeting. Remember, it's all about making your money like you, trust you, and make you more money. And if you have a property, you can refinance that property. I always say it's the best way to go about scaling up. If you have a property, and why do I say refinancing your property? Because there will be an equity portion. So for example, you bought a property for 100 rand, you've paid it down, and you only owe the bank 80 bucks. Then you've got a 20 rand equity in the business. You can then use that 20 rand equity as a down payment for your investment property. And that will minimize the mortgage that you pay on a monthly basis. And once you've done that work properly and you understand that the rental market is higher than what the bank is going to ask you to pay, then you fine. But you must also know there are other expenses, operating expenses that you need to consider. And hence, it's important to look at your ROI, understand the numbers, understand what you want to do and where you want to go. The crucial thing, it's not even only the budgeting, it's why. The first question is, why am I doing this? If you're going in for fun, don't do it. Don't call it investment. That's number one. If you're going in for fun, don't bother. You're wasting your time. if you're going in for business, then think business. And that is what the cash flow becomes sense. And this is what we look for. And this is what we also teach in the property ask a call class. But it's a simple thing and it's a discipline that you need to follow. And once you've gotten that, it becomes a sailing process.
Eko, I'm keen to hear from you, before we wrap up, any last thoughts around some of the things we probably shouldn't try to jump into when we're buying the investment property?
What I will add on is underestimating your expenses. And don't go into buy a property without going to visit the property. You need to look at that property. It's very crucial. And also talking about not rushing into things. Another video I did is called on property ask a call is called how to raise unlimited loans from the bank.
Well, Eko, we are going to leave it there this evening. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.